Welcome to the Cross the Line podcast. My name is Carlos Smith, and today's episode is sponsored by Charlene's Home Cooking on 1136 East Blackstock Road. Charlene's Home Cooking is a family restaurant that cooks like grandma with fresh veggies and meats cooked to order. You can do a meat with 2 sides, a meat with 3 sides, or a veggie plate. Cakes, pies, and cobbler are also available for dessert. She would love for you to visit, so make sure you stop by on Monday, Thursday, and Friday from 11 to 6, Saturday and Sunday from 11 to 7. Everything is fresh and from the heart, and she would love for you to visit. So thank you, Miss Charlene, for being a sponsor once again for the Cross the Line podcast. As we are on our tour, we went from Chattanooga, Tennessee. Now we are in College Park, Atlanta, Georgia. We have another very special guest, a serial entrepreneur, Miss Valaurie Bridges Lee. How are you?
I am fantastic, and welcome to College Park, Georgia.
Yeah. We enjoyed it. We had a great conversation off camera, so I know people are going to enjoy it. But thank you so much for taking the time to sit with us. And like I said, I do a lot of homework. I do my research before I reach out to people, and just reading your story, I was like, you know what, I think she will be somebody great that we need to try to have on. So thankfully you reached out to us. I mean, you responded and you were happy to come join us. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. And I told you before, I said, wait a minute, do I have an hour's worth of information folks want to hear? But maybe I do. Maybe
Absolutely.
I do. It's just encouraging and motivating other entrepreneurs and any other things that they want to do, any other career. So I'm excited about being here. Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am, because entrepreneurship is something that we're very big on the podcast. I don't think I told you, but at first this was supposed to kind of start off as a sports podcast with me and some of my friends. As we called it, Cross the Line podcast, because we were going to cross the line and talk about different things. So that's why we came up with the podcast.
I love it.
But you know, after you graduate from college, life happens and everybody has to work and pay bills and everything. So I kind of held on to the name and just started doing my own journey. And then we just led us to here right now. This has been about 2 years in the making now actually, including all the interviews, it's been 5 years, but consistently with the Cross the Line podcast, it's been about 2 years now, going on 3 years.
That's awesome.
So
you should be giving yourself a hand.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's been a blessing, man. It's been tough. I'll tell
everybody.
Entrepreneurship
is tough, though. It's tough.
But you know, like I told you before we started, like I just pay attention to the signs. And some days where I'm like, man, am I doing the right thing? Just like, it's always something like somebody reach out to me, hey man, I like what you're doing.
Confirmation.
Yeah, confirmation. Like you inspire me to like start my own business.
That's right. And that tells you cannot stop.
Right.
You cannot quit.
Absolutely.
Right.
And then it's like, you know, it was always there, but now on my timeline on Facebook and on Instagram, I see a lot more of my friends like starting business, whether it's makeup or clothes or whatever it is. Right. Now I see a lot more people investing in themselves and creating their own opportunities, which I love to see. And I'm not taking credit for that because you still have to have something in you that makes you want to go get it.
You do.
But it's just like now I'm like, okay, I know I'm doing something right. And then people will reach out, hey, how do you start a podcast or anything?
I was asking you because we're going to do a podcast here next year. So we're excited
and
about
it's big because I think, I don't want to throw radio under the bus, but I feel like podcasting is now like the new way to go instead of like traditional radio.
Absolutely.
Because even now you'll see like your favorite athletes or entertainers, even they have podcasts.
Absolutely.
So I think in the future that's definitely going to be big. So of course people ask me all the time, and I just give them the stuff that I'm doing. Just keep it simple. Yeah. And just main thing is just stay consistent.
That's right. And you gotta, it's consistency, but you gotta continue to be hungry for it.
Absolutely.
When you lose that hunger, you gotta figure out how to get it back.
Absolutely.
Right?
And I always have things like, I always have these like reminders for me. And I'll tell you, anybody, I have stuff like family, or for me, one of the biggest things for me is like, I'm thankful to have a job so I can provide for my family and do the things that I need to do. But it's like when I go there, it's like, I'm just going through the motions. So every time that I go, I'm like, I know this is not the end for me. Like, I have to do something else. Like it's just the beginning, yes. So it's like when I go to work, and you know, sometimes it's just some of the small things like when you have to deal with management or somebody else. It's like, okay, I know
This is preparing me for greater. You got to change the trajectory, change the perspective of how you look at something that's negative, and turn it into something positive. I know because I'm going through this, I'm going, number one, get closer to God, and number two, I'm going to look back on this a year from now and say, I thought that was really big, and look at where I am now.
Right.
it's an opportunity for you to reflect back and say, wow, I thought that was hard, but look at where God has taken me. You know, that's what I have to do.
It's a journey, and those things
it's not easy.
Oh, it's not easy at all.
Definitely not easy.
I'm telling you, like I have things like, and it's just like those obstacles. It's just like, I feel like it's just God just testing like, how bad do you want it? Like, do you really want this, or do you just say you want it?
Absolutely.
And then when those opportunities come, you just have to leap on it. But I tell you, it's not hard. It's not easy, because I think when people look at these interviews and see how they just see us in here in front of the camera.
I'm going to set up a podcast. No, they don't know what you have to go through.
But I tell people all the time, like, I do a lot of preparation. I do a lot of reading. I do a lot of research. I watch a lot of interviews just to study the craft, because I want to see what other people are doing to get to where they are. And then, when you listen to what successful people went through, it's like, they didn't just pop up out of anywhere like it may seem like. They all went through a journey and a process to get to where they are. So, like, for me, I tell anybody, man, just study your craft and keep working.
Right.
The time of preparation for this tour, that's probably been one of the hardest things, somewhat stressful. Was just like trying to lay out the tour, like time and the dates, and make sure everything is going right. And then, I was like, man, you know what? I feel like we need to upgrade our equipment and everything. Like,
you want it now, too.
Yeah, I want everything now, and everything. It's a process.
But it's going to make you appreciate it. When you do get that upgraded equipment, you appreciate it more, because then you had to work to get it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was telling, for the people watching this, this is the first time I have some new equipment. Like, you see the microphones now. The story behind it was that I bought my own personal equipment. And then I was talking to my brother. He said, you know what? Wait before you get the equipment. Let my wife look it up for you, see if she can find you something for a cheap price. And I'm just the type that I'm a go-getter. I don't like to ask people for anything. And so I went ahead and bought some equipment. He's like, man, I told you to wait. You didn't have to get it. So then he texted me and said, hey, we're going out to eat. Can you make it Tuesday night? And I told him I couldn't do it Tuesday because we're doing something in our area. It's called You and It's Time We Talk, where we have a panel where we sit and talk about things to better our community. So I couldn't make it that Tuesday, but I said Wednesday will be better. Wow. So I said, all right. So we changed the location a couple of times, and then we ended up going to Buffalo Wild Wings. And after we finished eating, one of my best friends, Marcus, he brought in a big box, and he said, man, we got you a gift, man. We love everything you're doing. And it had the microphones, it had a mixer. It's a big mixer, not the one right here. I couldn't use that one because I don't know how to use it. I stayed up last night on YouTube trying to figure out how to use it.
We stay up many nights as entrepreneurs, don't we? We do.
Late nights and early mornings. But man, the microphones, the mixer, the stands, everything, they provided all that stuff for me, man. So that meant a lot to me, because they believe in me so much that they took the time out to surprise me and buy me some equipment. That means a lot to me, even though I was like, you know what, man, I was like, you know what, I had some money saved up, and I just bought my own equipment because I was like, I believe in what I'm doing so much that I know it's going to pay off. Yeah. But then it was just like God just stepped in again.
You had to invest in, like you said, your thing is invest in yourself, right?
Absolutely. Self-investment.
Self-investment, that's right.
And that's a big reason why we call it the self-investment tour, because we doing everything on our own. But sometimes you do have to be willing to, it's okay to ask for help and get help. And that's something I'm still learning as an entrepreneur. It's okay to get help, because sometimes you need that extra push to.
Because those are people that pour into you. One of the things that we do with BVB Foundation, that's one of the companies that I have, that's one of the newer companies, is we provide grants and scholarships for female, minority, women of color, entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs. And the campaign that we have for 2020, everybody has a campaign for 2020, right? But we are awarding $20,000 to 20 aspiring female entrepreneurs at 20 HBCUs. Wow. And so we are really excited about that. Last year we awarded $20,000, but we didn't have a campaign that was specifically tailored to HBCUs. And so we have a candidate from Tennessee State that we've awarded some money. We have a candidate from Clark Atlanta, Tuskegee. We're looking for other candidates. We need some folks from Spelman. It's free money. Right. It's free money for aspiring entrepreneurs. Spelman, Clark, you know, my parents went to Clark, Atlanta. It was Clark College then. My parents and grandparents went to Clark College. So we are waiting to bless some aspiring female entrepreneurs in that way.
And when we talk about while we're on education, I have my feelings towards it, but you know, one of the things I say sometimes is that, of course, you need to. I think college is a great thing. You need to go and get your education if you can afford it. But for me, looking back now, I know you need to go whatever school has what you're trying to major in. But for me, what I'm doing, I feel like part of me wishes now, looking back, I would have went to an HBCU so I could get that education. And you know,
it's a different type of feeling. Yeah. It's a different type of energy. Because I did not go to an HBCU. I went to the University of Georgia, which I don't apologize for that. It was wonderful. But, you know, my dad gave me an option. He said, listen, Valerie, I know you really want to go to Spelman. Now, you can go to Spelman and not get a car. Or you can go to University of Georgia where I don't have to pay out-of-state fees, etc. Well, both of them, I said, but Spelman was a lot more, and I'll get you a car. Well, at 18, there was no option for me. I said, I'm going to the University of Georgia, and I'm going to get me a car. So, but I personally believe that education is paramount, and you make it what you want it to do for you. And so I went to the University of Georgia. Journalism, public relations was my major. And everybody at that time wanted to be Oprah, or, you know, one of my role models was Monica Kaufman. On Channel 2. She came to my school in the 2nd grade, and I said, whatever she's doing, I want to do that. So I got a degree in public relations. Then I got my master's degree from Southern Tech, which is now Kennesaw State. And the funny thing about that story is I started my master's degree with my daddy. My daddy and I started our graduate degrees together. He didn't stay in the program. He said he did it just to get me in there. But that was something that's a big milestone for me that I went to school with my dad. So I finished that degree, and then now 30 years later from me being an undergraduate, I have started a doctorate degree at Georgia State University in business with an emphasis on entrepreneurship. Wow. So it's big. It's big to me because I feel like education is something nobody can take away from you.
Go ahead. I would say with everything that you have as successful as you are, did you feel like it was necessary to continue going? Of course, like I said, it's a great thing to have, but for you, you feel like it was still more that you needed to accomplish education-wise? I do, because I feel like education sharpens you. So, you know, with me being an entrepreneur, and people, the board, they don't like for me to say, Valerie, you're not an entrepreneur, you're a businesswoman now, right? So with that, it's being an entrepreneur sometimes can be a very isolating, lonely place to be, because you're always leading, you're always always making decisions. It's constant. My mind never rests, right? And so going to graduate school and getting in this doctorate program, to me, sharpens me. It sharpens me. I need to learn some of the new theories. And there's not a lot of research that is being done on female, black entrepreneurs. I want to put my footprint in that arena, in that body of knowledge. I feel like the school system for us, when we said this in our previous interview, to me it's watered down a lot, because like we don't know a lot about ourselves and our history and our culture. That was one of my biggest pet peeves with college. And I just feel like, as far as entrepreneurship, they need to put more of that in school, and also need to teach us more about like real life skills, things that we're going to actually use. Because like I had at Upstate, I had like astronomy and world
things
class. Never use it again. It was just like these electives and stuff that it was just like a waste of time. Yeah. So I just sometimes it's like, man, we're spending all this money on stuff that we're never really going to use again. But I absolutely say doctors and lawyers most definitely need to go get education. Well, see, my industry is higher ed. I work in the higher ed industry, so I definitely need that degree. I taught at Clayton State for a year and a half, and as an adjunct professor. And in my later years, I do want to teach because I love it. It's very rewarding for me, and so I do need that doctorate degree.
in that industry. So the other thing I want to mention that you said, you know, a lot of this stuff we don't use. As an entrepreneur, you have a responsibility to go get the information. Right. That really shows how hungry you are. If you are expecting it to be, and I'm not saying you this, but if folks expect it to be spoon-fed to them, that's not characteristic of an entrepreneur. You gotta go get it. You got if there's something that you want to do, it won't probably be in the curriculum. It's mentoring, it's shadowing, it's whatever, you know, if somebody's doing something that you admire, you got to connect with them.
Right. Because I honestly feel like
on-the-job training is very important, right?
And I remember graduated, and I went back to borrow some some equipment to shoot an actual interview one time when I was a freelance writer for BlackSportsOnline.com. And I remember one of the gentlemen that was in there handed me a camera. I was like, man, I graduated, but he's like, you know what? Even though you graduated, the learning process is really just beginning.
That's true. And honestly, let's just set the foundation.
Yep. And I was like, man, now I feel like I do a lot more learning on my own than what I did in school, because they, like you said, kind of like they spoon feed you and give you certain things, but it's not a lot of them that you may have interest in. But now on one of the books, a couple of books that I read this year that stuck out a lot to me. Of course, one of them is definitely Malcolm X. The autobiography of Malcolm X. They definitely didn't teach us a lot of anything about Malcolm X in school, but just his transformation of where he was into what he became, it was just so profound to me. And then it's another book called The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. It's just about finding your purpose. But I do a lot more reading now than I did before.
Reading and research.
A lot of reading and research.
That's the life of an entrepreneur
and
a business owner.
Yep, but those books, man, it was just eye-opener. And so much of the stuff that he talked about, and I don't want to make it all about Malcolm X, but just so much of the stuff that he talked about, you can kind of see it today in society. And it's just like, man, to me, I feel like part of the reason, it's a reason why they don't want to teach you that in school. It's just, it's a lot.
It's a lot.
But that's probably one of the most profound books that I've read. It's definitely this year, but period. Like the autobiography of Malcolm X. And
you have to read books too that that is a book that inspires you. But for me, because I taught a class at Tuskegee University yesterday, which was very exciting. Because I didn't go to an HBCU, I try to really connect myself with, because I'm in higher ed, with schools that are HBCUs. One of our clients right now is FAMU. We set them up with a chat bot. We do a lot of support services for their student system, which is very exciting. So one of the things that I like, one of the students I was going back to, because you know I'm old, so I'm forgetting some of the things that I'm saying, but one of the students said, you know, what do you do to recharge? You are in a doctoral program, you have 4 businesses, you have your mom. I listen, because I'm in the car a lot here in Atlanta, I listen to inspirational messages that motivate me. And you got to know what moves you. Yours might be books, you know, somebody else's might be connecting with someone else. But for me, when I feel, and every entrepreneur feels this, you might feel it 2 days, 2 times in a day, you might not feel it until 2 weeks. But everyone feels like, am I really doing what I'm supposed to do?
Right.
Am I in my calling? Am I in my purpose? And just like you said before our interview, there's something that will occur, something divine that will remind you that you are doing what you're supposed to do. One of my favorite books is The Purpose-Driven Life. And the first sentence of it is, it's not about you. So when you open up a book and it says it's not about you, that means that the purpose that you're walking is not about you. It's about what you can teach someone else, what your example is going to show, what that dash between that born and died, what did you do? What impact did you make? And that to me is very important, not just because I have 2 children, but because I want to operate as a thought leader and a trailblazer, especially for Black women.
Absolutely. And it is part of the reason why I said this before too, is that we call this business more than a job, because we want to be known as more than just a job. Like life is more than just a paycheck. You're just going to just work and that's it. And you can fall asleep just going in that cycle over and over, and then you just look back and you give a company 30 plus years of your life, the best years of your life, and then it's like that's it, and you'll look back with regrets. And I'm like, I don't want to feel that way.
Right.
So I want to do something. I mean, like I said, it's always greater to me. I love inspiring other people, but definitely I always tell people, man, just believe in yourself and like chase your dreams. Like it's not gonna be easy. It's gonna be things that come up. You'll never have the right amount of money you want to start something, because I thought that the same thing. Like, you know what, I need to have this, this, and this.
Right.
Like I said, before this, I was just using a laptop to record everything with no microphones.
And look at where you are now.
Exactly. We had a banner.
Right.
Everything.
Right.
It was like the main thing is just get started. It's not gonna be perfect when you start in the beginning. Like I said, like I was telling you before we started, like I have probably like 70 plus interviews like I recorded. And the very first thing I recorded, I was by myself. I'll never forget, I was sitting in my dad's storage building, and I just took the laptop and I just sat down and I talked for about 15 minutes about sports. And I went back and played it, and I just wanted to hear how it sounded. And it's so hard to have a conversation with yourself.
It is hard.
It's tough. And when I listened to it, I was like, man, I don't like the way I sound. I was like, you know what? But I had that experience with just covering the Hornets and the Panthers, and people would tell me like, man, you sound like a real analyst, like when you talking about these games. So that's why I did it by myself. I just didn't like the way I sounded. But I took a little break, and then I got back to it again. I recorded one back at Upstate by myself.
You had to reset.
Yep, I had to reset. And I did some with my friends, and then I just started, like, at one point, I got to a point, I was like, you know what, I'm going to just go all in, because I was working 2 jobs. And I would just work probably about 13, 14 hours a day. And I just fell in the cycle, this little crazy cycle. And one night I was there, I said, you know what? I got to get back up tomorrow morning at 4 o'clock and be back at 5. I won't get home till like 12 at night.
That's a lot.
And I said, you know what?
But perseverance and persistence pays off.
I said, something got to give.
And see, now look at you, an entrepreneur doing what you love, what you enjoy.
I love it. It's been a blessing, man. And sometimes you have to go through those things to kind of figure out what you really want. Like for me, it was just those working 2 jobs and just trying to pay off student loans. I had one job. I'm just telling you everything. I had a job.
I'm a journalist. That's okay. Right. Come on.
And and it's not about me. It's supposed to be about you. But we're just having this conversation.
This is our conversation.
But
yes. We just invited them to our conversation. Right.
And this gives another chance for people to hear more about my story as well. But I forgot. I said I was working two jobs to pay a $500 student loan. And so I ended up leaving my job at the radio station because I couldn't afford to pay my loans. I needed another full-time job. And but the thing that I took away from working at the radio station was I was a producer. So I learned how to fix my own audio, edit my own audio. So it's like God places you in these situations for a reason.
That's right.
So just take advantage of these opportunities.
Right. That's right.
So I ended up leaving there, and I had to work two jobs back, and over in that cycle. Then I ended up giving up one of those jobs, and I just started investing more time into the podcast. So it's just like every place that I've been, it's happened for a reason. But I just take something from wherever you are in life. Don't just look at it like, man, I hate this place. You can always learn something from wherever you are.
That's right.
And use it for your wherever you're trying to go.
And you know what? I really agree with that because my first job, I was a recycling coordinator. Now, I work for Waste Management. That's a trash company. That was not a very glamorous job at all. I mean, part of my job duties was I would drive around to the back of buildings, commercial buildings, and see if the trash was overflowing. Trash is overflowing. That's opportunity. That means their garbage isn't getting picked up. That's what I was doing. You think I wanted to do that? But what I learned on that job, it was sales. I had a territory. And I basically was responsible for my own area and my own, bonuses. What are you going to do, Valerie? Are you going to make 10 accounts close this year, or are you going to settle for 2? And so it encouraged me. I think I already had the drive to be an entrepreneur as a young girl. But that sales job really showed me that I could work independently, because as an entrepreneur, you have to be disciplined. Yeah, you don't have anybody over you saying, you need this, you need this, you need this, you got to turn this in. You have to have that self-discipline. You have to create milestones. You have to say, okay, by 2020, I want to have a new building. I want to have a new account, 20 new accounts. and make it measurable. So you can see, okay, I didn't meet this goal, but what could I have done differently? What did I do good that I'm going to replicate the next year? So you have long-term goals and you have short-term goals. Every month there should be a goal, right? And so that is one of the things that I learned in that first job that I had. I was so tired of talking trash. I'm like, I got to do something different. I need a different environment. And so I went from that sales job. Where did I go after? So I went from, actually the first job was with a recycling company. Then I went to go work for waste management. And then I went to go work for IBM. Okay. A lot of folks your age don't know about IBM, but IBM is an international business machines company. And I moved to California and I worked in sales there again too. And I realized, I said, you know what? I'm bringing in a lot of business for IBM, but I'm not being compensated for it because I was a consultant. And as a consultant, you do the work. You don't necessarily go out to find the work. So I worked for IBM, and I also worked for the PeopleSoft practice. I don't know if you've ever heard of PeopleSoft, but this is a technology company that was bought out by Oracle. If you've heard of Oracle, they bought PeopleSoft. So I worked for that company, and I said, I can do this on my own. And how did I know? When did I know that it was time for me to step out on faith and be an entrepreneur? I'm not sure you're ever 100%. That's why it's called faith. That's why it's called stepping out on faith. Lord, I'm not sure. One of the professors that worked with me at Clayton State loved to say that entrepreneurship is navigating ambiguity. And that's what it is, because you don't know about a lot of things. And so I stepped out on faith. I put my resignation in at a conference where I presented. Now imagine, I'm going to a conference in Las Vegas, and I tell my manager at that conference, I'm resigning. I resigned, and I only had a 6-week consulting project. That was all I had. And my mother said, are you really going to quit your job at a Fortune 500 company for a 6-week project? You don't have the business skills to do that. Well, if your mom tells you that, I know that was the fuel that just set me ablaze, because I said, okay, I'm going to prove you wrong. Now, my mom is my best friend, and she regrets that to this day. But if somebody tells me no, that is what fuels me. Because, you know, like, it gets a lot of people down. But for me, I want you to tell me no. Right. Please tell me no. Because that's really what I want on the shirt that says, please tell me no. Right. Because I don't take no for an answer. You might not do it now, but I might come back to you 2 years later, and it might be a yes. And it might be a yes for something completely different. Absolutely. But entrepreneurship is about building relationships. Absolutely. People do business with who they like. That is so important. And I hate that I didn't tell the class at Tuskegee 2 things. You always need, and they're very simple. Please and thank you. I know that seems so simple. It seems so simple, but if you look at a lot of folks today, they don't say please and they don't say thank you. In business, that is critical. And following up. So for example, if I talk to a client now, it's a cold call, because there's still colleges and universities that we don't have, that we won't. So we cold call them. And if we are afforded an opportunity to speak with the registrar, the provost, the president, we immediately follow up with a thank you. And not just a thank you email, but a thank you note. I don't ever want it to come off of their mind. I want VB Consulting, which is the IT consulting firm, to stay on their minds. Whatever IT issues that they need, I want them to come to us as their point of contact. And we'll help find the resources to help with the solution. Because that'll go a long way. It goes a long way. I want to go back to a couple of things that you said.
when you said about no, like hear a no that drives.
Oh yeah.
And one of those things, I actually wrote a book. It should be coming out soon. In the future.
All right, author.
Yeah, I'll tell you more about that as well. But it's like no. I said in my book, I said no is not what you want to hear, but it's what you need to hear. Because it forces you to go back to the drawing board and kind of tweak whatever you think is going wrong. And for me, that was one of the best things that happened because I always said when I was doing the broadcast, and I just felt like I was like, you know what? I've been in front of the greatest athletes in the world. I'm going to work at Fox or ESPN right after I graduate. So I was just sending my resume with the stuff I've done. I'm like, I'm pretty sure not to be, cocky or anything, but I was
confident.
Yeah, I was 22 years old at the time, and I was like, you know what? I don't think it's too many 22-year-olds that's been sitting in front of professional athletes doing interviews.
That's right.
But I kept hearing, you lack experience. So I was like, you know what? That just forced me to create my own opportunity.
That's what that no did for you. Absolutely.
So it's always like you can always take those things from like hearing no, because a lot of times you can get discouraged.
You can,
and it's
human to get discouraged. But you got to rechannel that energy. Okay, you don't use it, because I was telling my daughter this today. She was upset that she got a C on an assignment. I said, baby, rechannel that energy. Start doing as much practice as you can in geometry. Five problems may not be enough for you. You might need to do 10 or 20.
Right.
The practice makes permanence. Keep doing it. Keep going for it, right?
Absolutely. And something else you said was, you were doing all this, bringing in these clients for, I think it was IBM. You said you were going to get
IBM.
And it was like you do all this work for a company, and then they reap all the benefits pretty much. And I look at that the same way for myself now.
I don't agree with that completely. They don't reap all the benefits, because you got to figure out what you need to get from that company that will catapult you into your next level.
Right, that's true. That's true.
That's the way that we have to look at when we work for a company. Again, foundation. This is short term for me. What do I need to learn? Who do I need to align myself with so that when I am an entrepreneur, when I am a business owner, I might go back to those same people and ask for advice for planting seeds. So I call that's the time where you're fertilizing. You're fertilizing, and then you're blooming when you are in the entrepreneurship phase.
Right. Because I always say, I'm always learning from what I'm doing now. Especially one of the things I have to do is like get up early. So as an entrepreneur,
oh God,
you have to get up early anyway.
Yes, you cannot sleep late as an entrepreneur. I'm up at most mornings 4 a.m.
Yeah, well, I'm 4 a.m. Right now for us, we have to be at work at like maybe 4 o'clock in the morning, so we get up at 3 o'clock. But I just look around sometimes while I'm at work. I'm like, man, I'm doing X, Y, and Z for them, and none of this stuff is mine. And at any given moment, like they can walk me out, nothing is guaranteed. So at the same time, why would I want to go ahead and bet on myself also, because the things that I'm doing here, I'm putting in the work here, I should be willing to put in that same amount of work, even more work on myself to get to where I need to go.
And it's easy to say, wow, I'm putting all this work in here, but maybe it should be, oh, you know what, I am putting all this work in here, but wow, when this becomes my own, when I do my own thing, I'm going to use this to catapult me. Because it's easy. I mean, I remember when I worked for waste management. So before I was an outside sales rep, I was an inside sales rep, and it was like telemarketing. And I was just like, why do I have to do this? This is just terrible. I have a college degree. Why am I calling people? It's like Dial America a little bit, right? And so what I learned from that is now I'm using those same skills that I learned when I was doing that with waste management as an inside sales rep. I would look at the outside sales rep and I would say, I can do that. Why am I not being promoted for that yet? It was God's timing, because I needed to be in that incubation period where I was learning more tools as well. So no experience is, don't take any experience that you have for granted, because there's always something good in it. It might be 99 things that were bad, but it's always something good in what we go through.
Absolutely. I got a list of questions that I don't even think I really started asking these questions that I have. One of the things we're talking about entrepreneurship. How did you get into entrepreneurship? What did you come from a family of entrepreneurs?
No, I did not come from a family. Well, my grandmother used to do hair, so she was an entrepreneur. But my mother and father, my mother was assistant superintendent of Fulton County Schools, and my dad was an engineer at Lockheed. So they really, honestly, because they were so protective of me, they were fearful of me venturing out into the entrepreneurship space because that wasn't something that was familiar to them. But I just knew that I wanted to be my own boss. That's what entrepreneurship meant for me. When I was a little girl, I used to play store. I always wanted my own boutique. And even before I had my consulting company, I had an online store where it's called Conversation Pieces Boutique. And so I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. I really have. But one of the things I'm really excited about is, I've had VB Consulting for 18 years. That's an IT consulting firm. But I just recently became a serial entrepreneur. Okay. Well, how did you become a serial entrepreneur? Well, let me tell you why. So we talked about VB Consulting. We also talked about the foundation. So I had the foundation. What I think is really important for every entrepreneur is to have a philanthropic arm. You've got to give back because money is exchange of energy. So you got to pour into other people. If you want to come up, you got to help other people come up. That's really important to me. But back to the entrepreneurship side. So this building, not this one, but the one next door, I would patronize and go into because I love College Park. I went to school at Woodward Academy. My kids go to school at Woodward Academy.
Is that close to here?
Yeah, it's right across the street. It's a school right across the street. And I used to live behind this spot. I lived in College Park for many, many years. Always wanted to live in this area. Well, I have a business here in this area. So there's a spot that became available. And I said, ooh, I really would like to look at that spot, but it's probably something that I can't afford. Let me go just check that out. So I had a realtor go and look at the spot with me, and it was a spot that I used to patronize a lot. It was a boutique. It was a boutique. So long story short, I said, I want to buy this spot so that my consultants have a place to work. I was buying it for office space, okay? It needed a lot of work. So as soon as I closed on the spot, the neighbor next door said, I understand that you're looking for office space. I want you to come and look at my spot. I had no intentions of buying another building, right? But as soon as I walked into the space, I said, oh my goodness, this is ready-made, turnkey. Consultants can walk in here and use the space. Is there any way that I could potentially get both of these spaces? And God worked that out. So the next spot is the wellness spot that we are renovating right now. It's a fitness and day spa. That's the last spot that we bought. That's, people say, well, you bought the whole block. There are 4 storefronts. So in a matter of November of 2019 until now, we have 4 buildings. So it's not just the businesses, it's the buildings. And that's something that I want to encourage, especially African Americans, to invest in. It's great to have a business, but it's better to have the building where your business is, right? So we have, now we have a building, Pop Shopolis, a business, Pop Shopolis, and it is for
that's the
yes,
right
Pop Shopolis, ATL on Main. This is a pop-up space for aspiring entrepreneurs. Now we're in a pandemic right now, right? So a lot of folks don't want a year lease, they don't want a 6-month lease, they don't want a 3-month lease, they just may want a weekend. They may just want a day. And Pop Shopolis, ATL, offers that ability to do that. So there's an upstairs and downstairs, and we have pop-up fitness, pop-up cakes, pop-up, one girl came and she did a reading there. She did filming at Pop Shopolis. So we are really excited about that. PopShopolisATL.com. We're very excited. And that was an unexpected business because what I wanted to do was use that for office space, and then I bought the other building, right? So now I have office space. And then I said, well, let me let someone come and rent it out. Well, in a pandemic, it's hard for someone to commit to a year. So I had someone in the space. I had not planned on doing another business. But she moved out. She took everything online because she felt like that was better for her. But I said, there's something that we can do with this space. And pop-up shops, that's what we're doing.
What does that mean to you to be able to not only create opportunities for minorities, but help other businesses that may not have the resources, like you said, we're in a pandemic, so they may not be able to afford their rent. What does that mean to you to be able to create opportunities for minorities?
What it means is it's very humbling, and I know it's not me. I really want to be clear about that, and it's just God using me. If He says, Valaurie, I want you to do this, sometimes I say, really, Lord, you want me to do that? Are you sure? Are you sure? But I have to go where He tells me to go. And so remember what I said, it's not about me. That's my mantra for my life. It's not about me. It's where me moving where God wants to move me so that I can bless somebody. That's my purpose. You know, everybody keeps talking about, what's my purpose? What's my purpose? Am I supposed to be this? Am I supposed to be that? My purpose is I'm supposed to help people.
Absolutely.
Everything that God has blessed me with, it's not about me.
Absolutely.
It's not about me.
For you, what would you say is the hardest part of entrepreneurship for you?
The hardest part, I think, is first, you don't ever have enough time. You know, I'm always, as an entrepreneur, my mind never rests. Like my 15 and 14-year-old will say, Mommy, can you just relax? As an entrepreneur, you're always trying to think about how you can reinvent yourself. You're always thinking about the next project, the next client, the next idea. That is, you know, like my mind is always racing. So that would be one of those things. I don't ever think I have enough time. But really, you do. It's just, I could do better with time management. But I have a lot of things on my plate. And I do think, I saw one of your other folks that you interviewed. I would agree that being an entrepreneur and a businesswoman can be very lonely and isolating. You are constantly making decisions. There are just sometimes where you just don't want to make any decisions. For example, if I go out with somebody and they say, hey, where do you want to go eat? I don't want to make that decision. You guys decide and I'll just show up, because you're constantly making decisions. So that would be the part. But see, remember I told you how you have to turn it to good. I'm grateful that I can make decisions.
Right.
Because, you know, sometimes we're on jobs where we can't make decisions. So to have the opportunity to be able to do that, it's a blessing.
Yeah, it's like you said, entrepreneurship is never ending process. And like for me, setting up these interviews, like I'm always thankful for everybody to take the time to come sit with us. But then it's like, you know, okay, what's next? Like, where we going next? Who we gonna have on? So it's just like a constant grind. So it's like it's never ending. And sometimes I'm bad with time management too. Because I have kids, and it's like I want to make time for family.
You do,
but it's man, you know what? I just want something that they'll be able to look back on and give them something, have something that they can have.
A legacy for them. And that's something we do. That's a challenge for our community.
It
is what legacy are we leaving? Right? What legacy are we leaving our children? Yes, home ownership is great. Having a building, a storefront is better. If my daughter says, Mommy, I would like to have my own practice. I want to be a doctor. I would love to have a place set up for her to have her own practice.
Right.
You know, I still want her to work hard. Now, that's very important. We don't give anybody anything on a silver spoon, but legacy is something that I think we all need to do better with.
Absolutely. Because it's so many times, you know, when I had some t-shirts, these t-shirts made, and I went, and the guy that made the t-shirts, he was like, you know, my dad had this business and he got sick and then eventually passed away. But he started this business, you know, I didn't want to let it go away. So he gave it to me, and he still has that business, and I guess he's going to pass it down to his children.
Exactly.
And one of his co-workers is the same thing. Like his grandparents had some land and had like 3 farms.
Right.
Before the grandparents passed away, they gave each one of the grandchildren a farm. So it's like so many times our community, we don't have those things that we can pass down to our children and grandchildren. So it's something like we need to change, because a lot of times when we're growing up, we see our parents, all we see is them just getting up and going to work. And then I guess eventually they'll tell us, we want you to go to college and get a great job so you don't have to struggle like we did.
Right.
But eventually we still may fall into the same thing. We have a great job, but then we still doing the same thing, just repeating that cycle. It's like, what are we passing down for generations? And it's so important, like you were saying.
Yeah, the hard work. Yeah.
Absolutely. One of the other things, so many things I have. Like I said,
I know. We have to cut off because I have another interview and I really hate that. Maybe we can have a part 2.
We can absolutely have a part 2. One of the things I want to ask you before we leave, though, is like entrepreneurs, you have to take that leap of faith. And we had Dr. Lakeisha Hallman on, and she said a lot of things like when you know it's time to jump and how to be prepared. It's like you may make sure you have enough for money put away for a rainy day, or take a look at like health insurance. Those things are important. What else would you add to that for entrepreneurs that have to take that leap of faith?
Well, see, whenever people ask me about advice with entrepreneurship, I want to, and it's funny, a lot of kids from Tuskegee ask me, what would you do? It all goes back to discipline. Discipline. And so discipline in your meditation time, discipline in your work, because nobody's going to tell you, oh, you need to go do this. You know, you have to make some decisions as an entrepreneur, right? And so I think discipline, because again, I'm up at 4 a.m. and I don't stop. I have people that work with me say, Valaurie, I don't know how you do it. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know how I do it either. But I think it is just being centered, because I have discipline. I don't compromise when it comes to my spiritual walk. I have got to center myself. And when I'm off and I don't spend that time in the morning getting centered, my day is not good. Right. And so you have to also get into a routine. Find your routine. Find your rhythm. And don't get discouraged. That's the one big thing with entrepreneurship. So many times folks get discouraged and they just say, I'm not doing this.
Absolutely.
But you have to know within yourself that this is something that you were destined to do. You got to believe in that. And like the song says, sometimes you have to encourage yourself, even when other folk don't. You have to be able to do that for yourself, because remember, like we talked about earlier, it could be a matter of minutes when your whole situation changes.
Absolutely.
You can have, like I told them yesterday, you can have 1,000, 10,000 no's, but you only need one yes. You only need one yes. And I do remember my one yes that just changed my whole trajectory, and we'll get that on part 2.
Absolutely. One more quick question before we get out of here. This is the Cross the Line Podcast Self-Investment Tour. So I've been asking everybody, what does self-investment mean to you?
Self-investment means that you are focused on improving your abilities. Self-investment means self-fulfillment to me, because when you self-invest, and I go back to my same things. When you self-invest, you're investing for other people. This is my definition, because you're investing in yourself, because it's not about you. When you come up, other people will come up with you.
Absolutely.
That's what I believe self-investment is.
Absolutely. Ms. Valaurie, I know you have to go. I want to thank you for taking this time. We enjoyed it. Like I said, I had so many questions that I didn't ask.
I know, but we need a part 2. We'll do a part 2.
We absolutely
in the holidays. We will.
Yes, ma'am. We'll be more than happy to come back. Before we get out of here, can you tell anybody how to find you, or do you have any advice you want to give me?
Oh, wow. Okay, so I do have to give the handle. So the IT consulting company is VB-Consulting-Inc.com. And Popshopolis is where we want some entrepreneurs to come and look at our space. That's PopshopolisATL.com, and we are on Main Street in College Park, right across from Woodward, next to Brake Pad. BVBFoundation.org for aspiring female entrepreneurs. If you're looking for grant money and scholarships, please go and apply. And for those companies that want to donate, there's the ability to do that as well. And coming in 2021, January, the Wellness Spot, which is our day spa and manicures, pedicures, massages. Please come out, thewellnessspot.atl.com.
Absolutely. We're looking forward to it. Thank you, Ms. Valaurie, again.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
We'll definitely have to do another part 2 to this, because this was a great interview. I enjoyed the conversation. So hopefully everybody enjoyed this. Till next time, keep chasing your dreams. This is the Cross the Line Podcast Self-Investment Tour. Thank you for listening.